Secret of the Mimic, the brand new Five Nights at Freddy's game that turns every other game upside down. The first game in the FNAF series, which may change almost everything we thought we knew about the lore. In this video, we delve deep into the implied lore and the endings, where we realize that Fazbear's was even worse than any of us thought. Our story all begins in the early 1980s with a multi-million company known as Fazbear Entertainment. This is a company that specializes in extremely high tech for the time. Now, Fazbear's has several contractors working under them, but the most important one is Edwin Murray, who was working on high-tech machinery such as an animatronic called the Mimic and other cool smaller gadgets. He owns a company under Fazbear's known as Edwin Murray's Manor, a place for invention, but also a place for children's entertainment. Eventually, however, Edwin mysteriously disappears, and the place gets shut down. Fazbear can't have this, however, and they want what Edwin was working on, so they send one of their employees, Arnold, to investigate and figure out where Edwin could have possibly gone. However, Arnold quickly comes to realize that the company doesn't actually seem to care about Edwin, and they just want to take literally everything he was working on for themselves. Edwin Murray and Fazbear signed a contract stating that everything Edwin had ever worked on was theirs upon termination or upon death, and they intend to fully follow through with it regardless of who could get hurt in the process. Arnold is extremely sleep deprived, and Fazbear is constantly making threats towards him. They continuously threaten to dox his pay and repo his truck, scaring Arnold into submission.
You can't fool me, though. You're just trying to snag one of those $25 gift certificates at the end of the year for outstanding performance.
What? No, I'm doing it because you guys keep threatening to dock my pay and repo my truck.
I love that enthusiasm.
Despite motion sensors detecting activity inside, Fazbear brushes it off and sends him in with a tool called the Data Driver, meant to gather information and unlock parts of the building. Inside the manor, Arnold finds leftover robotics, costumes, and animatronic suits, proving Edwin had worked with more than just Fazbear's. His tech reached carnivals, parks, and many other companies. Most crucially, Edwin had created the Mimic, a highly advanced endoskeleton capable of mimicking voices, behaviors, and personalities, changing suits and costumes, and being able to adapt to environments, and most importantly, to people. Through audio logs, Arnold learns Edwin originally built the Mimic for his son David. It was meant to entertain, be a maternal figure, and care for him after his wife and partner Fiona died in a tragic accident at Fall Fest.
I have to go help the Fall Fest crew, just for a few days until the installation is finished. It's hard to explain. I just have this terrible feeling like I need to be there so nothing goes wrong, just in case. Trisha will babysit David while I'm gone. I love you both, and I'll be back next week.
Edwin is now a distraught husband grieving. He loved Fiona. Fiona wasn't even supposed to be there. She was never meant to go.
Oh, why did you go? You weren't even supposed to be there. You were supposed to be here with me and David. Oh, how am I supposed to tell David that his mother is gone? How am I supposed to raise a kid on my own? His life is ruined. My life is ruined.
Edwin had built the Mimic using Fiona's memories, copying her behavior like a mirror. Two versions existed, M1, F10-N4, a version Edwin built to imitate his wife. His wife had died near MCM machinery, and it's not too far-fetched to believe that at some point she may have been possessing it. Edwin would later create another Mimic, M2, adopting his and his son's persona. Edwin was trying to put their family back together, but tragically something happens to David, an accident. Against the advice of Edwin's lawyers, he builds a playground for David near his warehouse where he can keep a closer eye on him. One day while his back is turned, David wanders off into the warehouse where he is tragically the victim of an accident on his birthday, passing away. In the books it's implied he dies in a car accident, but needless to say, he dies, and this completely destroys Edwin. The Mimic, not knowing what to do, began to mimic David, sound like David, act like David.
Stop. You're not him. You're not. Stop sounding like him.
Edwin's angry and distraught. How dare the Mimic impersonate his dead child? It feels like it was mocking him, his grief. In a fit of rage, Edwin violently rips it apart and then detonates it in his basement, enraged that it would dare to cosplay as his dead child, even though that is what Edwin had trained it to do. This leaves Edwin trapped and on the brink of death. Edwin had done a bad job of destroying the Mimic, however, as just like it was programmed to do, it began to copy the violence it had witnessed, internalizing rage and becoming extremely dangerous towards everything and everyone. Yes, the Mimic had survived, and it was angry. Well, it was mimicking anger. While Arnold is retrieving data for Fazbear's, he comes across several animatronics. Jackie, the Jack-in-the-Box, Big Top, a giant DJ music man who tears itself out of the floor, and the nurse who manages to yank herself free from the tracks on the floor. All who Arnold realizes is really just a mimic in disguise, and all who try to kill him. He begs Fazbear to let him leave and get him out of there, but they won't. Mimic's intelligence and the ability to imitate eventually lead to it mimicking the dispatch system, guiding Arnold, manipulating him to retrieve a data diver, a device that grants control and access to the system. Mimic wants us to escape and to contact the outside world.
You made it the farthest, farther than I had expected. I can't believe it was you. Put that data diver in the inventory system. It'll go right to where it's needed.
Arnold refuses, however, and the manor gets lit on fire, where he then attempts to flee in a car. However, the mimic won't let him go that easy, and he jumps on the car, attacking him. The car crashes, and the mimic flees on foot, with the data driver in hand, disappearing into the distance. This seems to be the ending a lot of people are leaning towards as canon. Same with me, as this would set it up nicely for the DLC Ruin and Security Breach, but we were given 2 other endings, one known as the bad ending, when you hand over the data driver as asked and then leave the building, only for the company to tell you you're fired for destruction of property. And then Arnold turns to find the mimic sitting in his backseat, where he then gets stuffed in a suit in the manor. In the secret ending, M2 emerges glitching between Fiona, Edwin, and David. Where's David? There you are. A bedtime story begins, and Arnold must correctly identify characters in the right order, using the tapestry. As the mimic glitches, Arnold hacks into the programming with the glitched permissions and succeeds. M2 reverts to David's persona. He smiles, climbs in bed, I love you, and shuts down, finally at peace. Arnold hears a noise outside. Someone else is here, but the story ends before we can ever see who. There's also a 4th ending where at the very beginning you immediately drive away, and I'm extremely disappointed with myself for not getting that ending, as I almost always try to leave at the beginning of a horror game, but for obvious reasons, however, this one cannot be the canon ending. Now that we've covered the base game and story lore, I think it's important to dive a little deeper into the behind the scenes of the game and what was going on beneath the surface. Weren't Henry, Emily, and William Afton the original co-founders of Fazbear's? Where are they in this game? Are they even present at all? And the simple answer is yes. They are actually both mentioned in this game. William Afton, a man with a family, a wife, and 3 kids, Michael, Elizabeth, and Evan. After meeting his wife at Fall Fest, where she was a dancer, they settled down in a quiet town, a place full of opportunity. But the Afton household was no dream. It was tense, broken. William was an abusive father, screaming at his wives and sons. Elizabeth was spared the worst of it, but he was a far cry from Father of the Year. Now, William Afton works for a company, Fazbear's, and has greatly enjoyed the company's success, but as things start collapsing, he starts losing money, and so he quits. This causes his wife to leave him. William Afton is stressed. The business is running into financial issues. Fazbear has lost trust with the staff and management, and everything is falling apart. William thinks and realizes that he could take it all for himself. People like him more than Edwin. He could have everything. So William Afton decides to open up his own Fazbear establishment, one that will make him millions. He will reap the rewards, be famous, even be a household name. So he starts recruiting staff under the radar. He begins asking around and seeing if they can't just use teens in the springlock suits instead. The staff, who of course hate the way the company is going and their long abusive hours, are not that difficult to convince. They despise Edwin for giving them work upon work upon work, constantly starting new projects over and over and over again.
Ed, you're not going to want to hear this, but there's a lot of grumbling on the work floor. You have a lot of new ideas and new projects coming in, but the staff can't keep up with all your changes. Your creative energy is amazing, and I love you for it. But I think you need to step back a little and focus on one project at a time.
They help William Afton steal Edwin's work. Fazbear tries to nip this in the bud immediately with empty threats and promises, but it's to no avail. Staff slowly begin moving to his company, where conditions are promised to be better and they are promised to make more money. While Edwin was at rock bottom, William proceeded to take everything from him, not batting an eye, and running the company further into the ground. Of course, Edwin did have a little support. He had a friend, a close friend, by the name of Henry Emily, who stuck by his side and attempted to help, where Edwin would even call him Hen for short. Edwin and Henry had built and designed a lot of the suits together, including the original spring locks, while his wife Fiona had helped them design them. Henry couldn't leave a friend behind. He was almost family, but he was also running low on cash, and he also never tried to stop William Afton from what he was clearly doing. Things only kept getting worse. Funds kept getting cut, staff kept leaving, and Edwin was spiraling. Henry was losing money, and his name was being damaged, so he looked towards William Afton, and he stood up, leaving Edwin like the others. Henry Emily began helping William suck Edwin dry for everything he had to offer, sabotaging him on multiple projects and watching him spiral in his own depression, leaving Edwin truly alone, where he would later die, most likely due to his own inventions. Five Nights at Freddy's: Secret of the Mimic isn't just another haunted animatronic tale. It's the tragic legacy of a man trying to fix the past and the twisted AI that became its echo. Edwin wanted his family back. Instead, he created something that mimicked grief, trauma, and abandonment. And now, that mimic is free. What happened after Secret of the Mimic, however, we know the before, but what was after? If you're new to the franchise or a longtime fan who just wants to refresh your memory, the video on screen delves deeper into the lore, explaining it as quickly as possible for you guys.